Corporate Governance, Stanford University, and Director of Research, CERC, Pratt School of Engineering, Duke University, and Mr. C.P. Gurnani, CEO and the Managing Director of Tech Mahindra. May I invite on stage Ms. Rekha, Sethi, Director General AIMA, to deliver the welcome address and introduce the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, the poll question for this session is, are Indian enterprises ready to disrupt global markets with technological innovations? I request you all to please log on to the AIMA app or website and please participate.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Vivek Wadhwa, Mr. C.P. Gurnani, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this special session on technology's disruptive influence on the industry and opportunities for India because of that. Vivek, it's a pleasure to have you with us in this session. A management and technology guru, you are one of the most influential thought leaders in the US. Your research on the impact of new technologies such as robotics, 3D printing, and nanomaterials is helping define the future of education, healthcare, security, etc. A very warm welcome to you. Mr. Gurnani, thank you for joining us today for this discussion. An outstanding CEO and a technology evangelist, you have made Tech Mahindra a leader of disruptive innovation in the country. You are steering the company's initiatives into emerging technologies and investing in the cutting-edge startups all over the world. A very warm welcome to you. Advanced technology is no longer something that belongs in the skunk world only. Now it is everywhere, in our pockets, in our cars, and in our homes. In fact, technology turnover has become so high that frequent technological advancements are taken for granted. Importantly, advances in technology have lowered the barriers to entrepreneurship and innovation. This has come as a huge boon to India, which has a large young population that is quick to adopt new technologies. However, to capitalize on the opportunity, India's young technology users have to be educated and trained to become technology creative. We are pleased to have the distinguished technology expert, Mr. Vivek Wadhwa, to give us a tour of new technologies, disruptions, and opportunities that these offer to India. His talk will be followed by a discussion with Mr. Gurnani about India's enterprises' readiness for technological disruption and the projects to take the advantage forward. First, I'd like to invite Mr. Vivek Wadhwa to come and speak to you on what is happening in the tech world and request him to take over the session.
Thank you, Rekha. I'm going to give you a very quick tour of the future and blow your minds. Now, I'm also going to challenge Indian industry to either adapt to technology or become toast. It's that simple. Now, the talks that I give all over the world are equally shocking to people there. Like when I speak in the United States, most business executives don't understand what's going on, and most American companies will be out of business over the next 5, 10, or 15 years. The same is going to happen in India. So let me start by giving you a tour of this future, and then CP and I are going to discuss how he's going to save his company and hopefully guide the rest of Indian industry. First of all, let's go back in time. Do you remember the Apollo mission? One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. This was a feat of technology. We grew up marveling at how much the human race had advanced and how we were able to now land a man on the moon. It was a technology marvel. Do you know what this technology was? What was behind it was the Apollo guidance computer. The Apollo guidance computer had the same computing power as today's musical greeting card. This is what got us to the moon. Today, we're marveling at the NASA rover Curiosity. We're getting back these beautiful images from Mars, and we're marveling at how far technology has advanced. Do you know what's on Mars? Something which is about 1/6 of the processing power of your iPhone. It's a 2-megapixel camera. 2-megapixel cameras, these cheap phones you buy in New Delhi, are more powerful than that. This is what's on Mars right now. We're in an era of exponentially advancing technologies. This chart shows you how tech has been advancing for the last thousands of years. It took thousands of years to go from pottery to agriculture to the plow to mathematics. For the last 200 years, there's been major advance after major advance after major advance. We human beings do not understand what this means. Look at how the telephone has evolved. I mean, I remember coming to Delhi and having to wait days to make a phone call to the USA. It would cost a fortune. Now you have beggars who have phones that can call anywhere in the world, and they cost practically nothing. If you remember Michael Douglas from Wall Street, that phone he held in his hand was the ultimate symbol of power. Literally, beggars in Delhi have better devices than that today. This is how it's advanced. And look at all the things that it now does. These devices all fit in your pocket. The Sony Walkman, the game players, the TV sets, typewriters, cameras, encyclopedias, they all fit in your pockets, and they're free features on your smartphone. But I don't think you realize that your phone is also becoming a medical device now. To start with this encyclopedia of medical knowledge, you have all the knowledge of the world available to you for free on your phone. It's also a glucose meter. I don't know about the stores over here, but you can go to Walmart in the USA. For $30, you can buy a glucose meter that connects to your iPhone. For $75, you can buy a heart monitor, an EKG machine that connects to your iPhone. If you go to the Apple store in Palo Alto, if you ever happen to visit there, you'll see an entire chest filled with medical instruments. Who would ever imagine that a technology store would be selling medical devices? But that is how it is advanced. Medicine is becoming digital and information technology. Everything which becomes information goes exponential. So medicine itself is now becoming a digital technology and IT. Soon we'll have AI physicians. When you have data, when you have information, the next thing you do is you use artificial intelligence to analyze the data. We will have doctors in our pocket that monitor us 24/7 and that advise us on our health. This will happen within 5 years from now. There will be apps that now are your personal physicians in your pockets. And the biggest advance of all is in genomics. About 15 years ago, there was a race between the US government and a scientist, Craig Venter, to sequence the human genome. The US government and affiliated labs spent $2.75 billion on getting there. Venter spent $100 million, and he won the race using government data. What cost $3 billion then costs $1,000 now. At the rate at which this technology is advancing, within 5 years, I'll have an iPhone case that does a complete human genome sequence. It'll be practically free. The significance of this is that we have become data, and our doctors are becoming software. So even the human beings are now becoming IT. Start thinking about what I said. India claims to be an IT superpower. Indian IT companies have built $100 billion industry. Health itself has become an IT now. This is an opportunity. We're entering an era of genomic medicine in which medicine is prescribed based on the individual, based on your genomic information. So in other words, instead of seeing a doctor who spends 3 minutes with you and advises every patient to take the same medicine, you will now have advice based on your genetic profile, your genome, based on your microbiome, which is an ecosystem within your body, based on your medical history and your lifestyle and your habits. All of these will be factors in the medical care that you get in the 2020s, in the next 10-year time frame. And then bionic enhancements. In the USA, there was a TV series called The $6 Million Man, in which a person got superhuman vision, superhuman hearing, and bionic limbs. Here's a prediction from me, that Steve Austin, the $6 million man, the bionic man, becomes a reality in 2030, 15 years from now. Steve Austin doesn't cost $6 million, he costs $6,000. Because what happens is that as technology advances, it becomes smaller and it becomes cheaper. Everything is becoming exponentially cheaper, which means that we will, in the next 15 years or so, have bionic enhancements that give us superhuman capabilities. We will almost all be able to afford these enhancements. What's making it possible are advances in sensors. For example, the first digital camera came out in 1975. It weighed about 4 kilos. It cost $10,000. It was a whopping 0.01 megapixels. What you have in your pockets today is roughly 1 billion times better than what you had in 1975. The big advantage that America had, it would not export this technology, was the guidance system in its intercontinental ballistic missiles. You remember the nuclear missiles that gave the US its strategic advantage over the whole world? It could nuke any country, anytime. It was in an arms race with Russia or the Soviet Union over nuclear missiles. The technology behind that were the accelerometers and gyroscopes. Those cost tens of millions of dollars. Now they cost less than $1, and they're features in your smartphone. The first GPS came out in 1981. It cost $120,000 and weighed about 53 pounds. Today, you can go on Alibaba and buy several of these for less than $1. For 50 rupees or less, you can buy a GPS, which is 1 billion times better than what we had in 1981. 1 billion time improvements between 1981 and today. If you took your smartphone apart, and please do not do this at home, you would find in it sensors that would have weighed hundreds of pounds and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just 30 or 40 years ago. And here's what's become smart cities. You know, the Indian government talks about smart cities. They have no idea what they're talking about. We can build the smart cities that we were reading about a few years ago, the $25 billion smart cities in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, in which everything was connected together. You can build those now for millions of dollars, not billions of dollars. You can now start building traffic monitors, pollution monitors, noise. All these devices are inexpensive. You could start taking Delhi and turning it into a smart city, neighborhood by neighborhood, and it would cost a few crore rupees, not hundreds of crores of rupees. This is what's become possible. And then robotics. As of 2015, it became cheaper to manufacture goods in the United States than in China. This is a major change that happened with robotics. Narendra Modi talks about Made in India. He also has no clue what he's talking about. The real opportunity for Made in India is using robots, because robots are dirt cheap right now, and they have the flexibility of a human being. That robot over there, Yumi, costs $40,000. It can thread a needle. It can do circuit board assembly. It can work 24/7 without complaining, without forming labor unions. And you can buy it from Switzerland right now for $40,000. Google is building humanoid robots. So I'm talking about robots like what we saw in science fiction being available in the 2020s. Chauffeurs, self-driving cars. Where I live in Silicon Valley, in Mountain View, we already have self-driving cars going around the roads. Before, people would stop to take pictures with them. Now they get angry and cut the car off because the car follows road rules. So soon, in the next 5 years or so, we will have self-driving cars in most of the world. I don't know about India, because I don't know if God would even want to drive over here or not. 3D printing. You can 3D print plastic, glass, titanium, human cells. These are all 3D printed objects. You can 3D print cars, 3D printed houses. In the 2020s, we will be 3D printing houses, 3D printing buildings. Imagine now recreating the most ancient structures from Indian history using 3D printers. You don't need craftsmen anymore. You can just visualize them or take some of the old paintings we had and 3D print those structures. Entire cities being 3D printed. This will happen in the late 2020s. NASA has been more ambitious. For the last 10 years or so, it's been talking about printing space stations on Mars, on the moon, printing colonies there before we get on the planet. This is what NASA is working on right now. And then the big change that's going to happen over the next 3 or 4 years is virtual reality. Imagine now watching me in 2020 giving a talk, except I happen to be in Palo Alto. And you're sitting here or sitting at home wearing headsets that take you into virtual worlds. Imagine now having lunch on the moon, or now visiting Switzerland when you wake up and have breakfast. This is going to be possible over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. These devices will become inexpensive, and even the beggars will be using them in the 2020s. This is how technology is advancing. Now let's switch gears and talk about what this means to solving the world's problems. When I give talks in the West, I have to explain to them that billions don't have energy, that there's poverty, there's despair, there's a lack of energy. Here, I don't have to tell you what the problems are. You live these problems all the time. But let's talk about energy. This is a map of the energy reserves of our planet. That big ball over there is solar. We get 1,400 times more sunlight every day than the entire planet consumes in a year. Yet we talk about energy shortages. Yet we have large parts of the world that don't have light. Children can't study because they have no lighting in the evenings. This is about to change. This is about to be fixed on its own. This is a map of solar. That chart over there is an exponential chart which shows you the cost of solar. This chart over here shows you the number of installations. Solar is doubling in installations every 24 months or so, and prices are dropping about 20% every 24 months. Extrapolate forward. What does that mean? Don't think linearly. This is what the problem with analysts and experts is, that they draw linear lines. They draw straight lines. This is not a straight line. This is an exponential curve. Here's what happens. That we are 6 doublings away, 14 years away from being able to generate 100% of the Earth's energy needs using solar. By 2020, solar will cost half as much as it does today. Half as much. Which means that all over India now, you have achieved grid parity, and you can now start disconnecting from the utilities. You're not dependent on the government to provide you with energy. By 2025, it'll cost about 1/10 as much. Now, the problem with solar is storage. So far, storage has been too expensive. Look at this chart. This is Bloomberg's chart on how prices of storage are dropping. By 2020, storage will cost about 50 or 60% less than it does right now, which means that in the early 2020s, you can take entire villages, and for $10,000 or $20,000, you can now have them off-grid. You can light up entire villages and give them the basic energy they need for practically nothing. We will be able to take middle-class houses over here and take them off-grid, and they have energy 24 hours a day. This is what's going to be possible in the 2020s. Unstoppable. So the Indian government is talking about nuclear, which is as stupid as could be, because the future is in clean energy. And then we talk about water shortages. So, even in India, I mean, every time I get here, I get sick because I happen to drink bottled water, or I happen to eat some vegetables which haven't been cooked properly, and I get sick. This is shocking, considering that all it takes to have 100% clean water is that you boil it and you capture the condensation, you have distilled water. So far, we've not been able to afford to do that because energy was too expensive. When energy becomes free, what happens then? We can boil the oceans and we have unlimited clean water. This is literally where we're headed. But this is still far away, 14, 15 years away. In the meantime, there's one company in Chile that's already built a system that can provide you 100% virus-free water. This will run with a solar panel, and it'll provide an entire village with 100% clean water. There are 6 of these units in production in Chile right now, in Santiago, and I'm working to take this all over Latin America. And then we'll bring it to India. I got my friends to invest in it, including Ratan Tata. He invested in this as well. This is a Chilean company. And then education. The fact is that no matter what the Indian government does, I mean, Shashi Tharoor is blaming the current Indian government, which is just stupid. India has screwed up on education. Teachers don't show up to work. There's no way you're going to fix that problem by changing the education system. The only way is to use technology. In the next 4 years or so, 500 million Indians are going to be coming online. 500 million people now are going to have smartphones and have internet connectivity. Imagine now what you can do with technology. Now, here's an experiment I did in Silicon Valley to show what's possible. When you think Silicon Valley, you think rich people, you think technology elite. Silicon Valley also has dire poverty. Parts of it can be like the most depressed parts of the developing world, poverty. You have children who don't have tablets, who don't have smartphones, who don't get good education in Silicon Valley. I was so disgusted when we moved there a few years ago that I did an experiment a year and a half ago. I took Akash tablets from India, the things that you laugh at in India. I took Akash tablets from New Delhi, had them shipped over to Silicon Valley. We did 2 hackathons with disadvantaged children, mostly black and Latino children, Hispanic children, Mexican children. And we gave them tablets. AT&T contributed SIM cards, so we gave them internet access. And then I had volunteers from all over Silicon Valley come and teach them how to code. Within 1 weekend, we went from these children being technologically illiterate to being able to write apps. At the beginning of the weekend, I said, how many of you believe you can be a Mark Zuckerberg? They ignored me. They just laughed at me. At the end of the weekend, I said, how many of you believe you can be a Mark Zuckerberg? Everyone got up and raised their hand saying, I can do it. They had built apps. They had learned how to code in 1 weekend. Now, if I can do that in Silicon Valley on my own, using some organizations over there to help me, why can't you do that in India? What's stopping you people from uplifting your own disadvantaged people and now fixing the education system yourself? It's very easy to blame government, but it's in your hands to fix the education system. This is not government's problem. This is your problem. And you can do it using technology. Now we talk about healthcare. 5 billion people on the planet lack access to reliable diagnostics. And even when they have it, they can't afford it. Look in India, one of the biggest problems you have. You know something? The most advanced technology in the world I've seen to solve the healthcare problem, was made in New Delhi. People don't believe it. People here believe that Indians can't make anything intelligent. The people in Chile who built that water sanitation system didn't believe in that company, so I had to get involved and bail them out. Well, there's a company over here founded by Dr. Kanav Kohol, who's in the audience today, which has built the equivalent of a medical tricorder. You remember Star Trek, in which they had these devices that could diagnose disease? Well, this device can diagnose 32 different diseases, a 600-hour device. I went and I saw it. I had seen, I met Kanav when I was here about 2 years ago, and I've been watching his progress. I went to Peer Grahi relief camp in 2 days ago. I was completely blown away with what I saw. That you had a completely automated healthcare system there, unlike anything I've seen anywhere in the world. Patients would come in, within 30 seconds they were registered. Within 4 minutes after seeing the doctor, tests were ordered. They went to the next room, the testing was done. Within 5 minutes, they had the results back. By the time, within 10 minutes from coming to the clinic, they were diagnosed. One pregnant woman was diagnosed to have a serious deficiency, and they took her to the hospital immediately. Within 10 minutes, she was diagnosed. In the West, she would likely have died if she didn't get care because there was no way of diagnosing her. This is New Delhi, which is leading the world in medical innovation. So Kanav and his team have been using this in J&K. They've documented how what would take would take days now takes minutes. In Mukhtar, Punjab, they documented that 100 lives were saved in 1 year alone with the Swasthya slate, again, which is a made in New Delhi technology. Now, this is going to be disruptive for industries. I'm going to do a quick tour, then hand it over to my friend over here to tell me how he's going to save India. But every industry I look at is going to be disrupted. Start with digital photography. Remember Kodak? Kodak went into bankruptcy in 2012. It was a multi-billion-dollar company that was worthless by the time 2012 came along. The same year, Instagram came out of nowhere. It was acquired for $1 billion. And then a year later, 2 years later, came WhatsApp. I had never heard of WhatsApp when it was acquired. $20 billion acquisition. What happened was that Kodak became toast, and Facebook and WhatsApp got into the photography business. Because this is the game. This is the game that Facebook is playing, that it's mining the data, it's mining the photographs. And along the way, the tech industry started damaging the telcos. It's something like a $400 billion loss to the telecom industry because you now make free phone calls and you send free texts. This is what happened as a side effect of a college dropout from Harvard wanted to get starting a social media site. So let me show you what this Hall of Toast looks like. We used to have record stores. They're gone. We now have the iTunes store. We download music. The long distance, when I used to come to Delhi, I said I used to make very expensive phone calls. Now here it's like ₹1 a minute or something to call the USA. It costs me more to call from there to here than it does from here to the USA. Bookstores, we used to have bookstores all over the place. They've been replaced by Amazon now, at least in the West. Movie rentals, Netflix, taxi cabs, Uber. I was shocked when I took a taxi this morning. It cost me practically nothing, and immediately it had the same features and functions as what I'm used to in the West. Classifieds, they're being replaced by Craigslist and LinkedIn and the equivalent in India. And soon, we're going to wipe out the telecom industry. Reliance Industries, Vodafone, and all these other telcos, toast within 5 years. Why? Because there's a race between the technology industry to blanket the earth with Wi-Fi. We have Google, Facebook, OneWeb, SpaceX, all in a big competition to see who can blanket the earth with Wi-Fi first. Their motivation isn't to charge money for it. Their motivation is to mine the data. So we will have almost free internet connectivity worldwide by 2020. We will not need the telcos anymore. They're going to become toast. And then the credit card system. Most people here don't have credit cards yet. The next step is digital currencies. In the USA, we have Apple Pay. What happens now when Apple accepts another option, Apple Coin or Bitcoin? You're talking about wiping out the entire credit card industry, all within the next 5 to 7 years or so. These are the type of changes that are happening. And then, as I said, even God doesn't want to drive in India, so he invented self-driving cars for us. Self-driving cars are going to change the landscape of cities because you won't have traffic problems because self-driving cars aren't as stupid as human beings are. They will be able to go on special lanes without speed limits. They will basically make our lives productive while we're commuting so we can live as far outside the cities as we want to. Self-driving cars in the next decade or so are going to change the landscape of cities. Major, major opportunities, major, major changes up ahead. And here's my prediction, that within 7 years, or 6 years actually, China's manufacturing industry is toast. India's IT industry is toast. Sorry, CP. What's happened is that the cost of starting companies has dropped exponentially. There are thousands of startups happening in India right now that are going to disrupt major industries. Takeaways. Exponential technologies make the impossible possible. Entrepreneurs can do what only governments and big corporations could do before in solving global problems. Many Indian industries will be toast, and dozens of these companies that we're laughing at right now are going to be the next billion-dollar companies. All right, my friend, tell me how you're going to save the IT industry, because I don't believe it can be saved.
All right, guys. I mean, I'm a huge admirer of Vivek because once you listen to him, you don't need coffee, you don't need any drugs to keep you awake.
Before you say that, I've got to say something nice about CP over here.
Yeah.
You know, in the USA, there are two business executives who understand disruption. Mark Fields, the CEO of Ford, and Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan. The vast majority of American CEOs don't get it, and this is why I believe the vast majority of American companies are going to be toast. In India, there are only two executives who I can have intelligent conversations with, CP Gurnani and his boss, Anand Mahindra. There is no other Indian executive that and I know many Indian executives, there's no other Indian executive I know who seems to understand the change that's happening, who have any confidence about in being able to save the industries. This is how bad it is over here. So.
All right, thank you, Vivek, and now you know why he's so charming. He disarms you even before the battle begins.
So how are you going to save IT? What are you going to do to transform the company?
So I guess, what Vivek is predicting, whether it takes 5 years or 7, or whether he's right, and most of the disruption will happen within 6 years, I do believe that there is enough empirical evidence. When I started talking to Vivek about 3 years ago, and when he used to give me these data, frankly, I used to be skeptical. I used to have arguments with him. And his lovely wife, who is here, has cooked enough meals for us to keep us going for that. Through
the whiskey helped a lot also.
Yeah. So I'm not here to disagree. At the same time, I'm one of those firm believers who see an opportunity. The reality is, us not having landlines was an opportunity for us to leapfrog. That for us not having enough healthcare facilities in every village, and we just heard Shashi Tharoor, who was once government and now not in government, had very convenient words to say about which government is doing what. But the reality is that yes, we have a skill gap, we have a diversity gap, we have a knowledge gap, we have a wisdom gap, and in a lot of ways, we have a rural-urban gap. But the point here is that many of these problems are solvable because of the exponential growth of technology. The question for us, whether we are technology leaders, or whether some of you who are business leaders is, will we come up with those solutions and will we really bridge that gap? Today, technology is affordable. The reality is that Swasthya Slate or that drinking water, the solution that we found in Chile, I do believe when you start addressing the 1.2 billion people in India, the technology makes it easy to bridge the gap. That's the first part. So for example, when Vivek talked about Mahindra as a conglomerate, right? Anand was the first one who said that today's youth is not in love with a car or SUV. It realizes transportation is a basic need. And as long as we can understand that the basic need is being addressed. My 2 children in US, they don't own a car. And they don't need a car because of, the services available, whether they are called Lyft or whether they are called Zip cars or whether they are called Ubers. I mean, similarly, when I go to my daughter's house in San Francisco, she does not own a TV. Yeah, sure. Cable industry is toast. Now, why does she not own a TV? Because she views all the content through the internet. Right. So my point out here is, if you go through the underlying themes everywhere, the underlying themes are connectivity, underlying themes are automation, underlying things are artificial intelligence, underlying themes are the processes can be broken to bring in a new process. And technology makes it possible. So frankly, I as an IT company don't think I will remain an IT company. And I'm very, very conscious. Internally, we call ourselves no longer an IT company. We are saying IT to a DT company. Now, DT, does it mean digital technology? No. To me, it is a data technology. And why am I using these words is just to emphasize that today's individual, many of you probably are wearing one wearable on your hand like I wear one wearable. But it is not very far. Maybe in 6 months, maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, each one of us will be wearing about 5 of these sensors. 6 of these sensors. If they are going to be connected to something, that effectively means is that you will be creating so much of data and so much of intelligence that is required to analyze that data, that if you follow the data, you're probably following the money. And I can go on and on. But the point out here is that let us recognize a Flipkart valued at 15 billion, yeah, somebody would say 14 billion, thank God. But tell me which retail company is valued even 5 billion in India?
Exactly. These people laughed at Flipkart not too long ago. Yeah. I mean, Snapdeal, these companies were considered to be a joke. No one took it seriously. They're worth more than almost all the companies in this room already. And that's just the beginning. And Flipkart and these companies are not overvalued because the biggest boom in technology is yet to come. There are about roughly 100 million people coming online every year right now in India. It's going to accelerate. Literally, by the end of the decade, you're going to have close to 1 billion people online in this country, which is bigger than any market in the world. Just like there's no infrastructure, there was no infrastructure here for landlines, there was no infrastructure here for digital technology. The entire nation is going to come up on digital technology, which means there are opportunities in every remote part of India, that villages will be solving their own problems, they'll be developing their own sharing apps, they'll be developing their own corruption reporting apps, they're going to be developing their own medical instruments. It's going to happen all over the country because Indians have this sense of jugaad, that they figure things out and they solve problems using technologies and using tools in many different ways. You're going to see this happening over the next 5 years or so. So the point to all of you is, if you want to sit in your ivory towers and say just because everything was good and we became so rich and fat over the last 10 or 20 years, we can continue to be that way, you're going to be out of business. You will be toast. If you take advantage of it, you could be worth $15 billion or $50 billion if you figure this out. That's really the message you have to understand. CP now understands data. He understands AI technologies. When we first had these conversations, I could be talking to someone from a different planet. He was not in tune with it. Now he's one of the most articulate people about the digital disruption and changes that are happening. This is something all of you need to learn also. You need to start learning these technologies and understanding how can we apply them to solving the problems of India. There are 1 billion problems over here, which means that you have a billion opportunities to solve problems.
Again, thank you, Vivek, and I think we can go on and on. The reality is the food produced in the farms never really comes to the fork. 70 to 80% gets lost. I think technology, digital marketplaces, some of those initiatives have started, and with the reducing cost of sensors, I think it is just going to happen much, much faster. The question for all of us in this audience is that can we look at each industry, can we look at in each company and say, are they ready to disrupt internally? Are they ready to be the disruptors in the marketplace? And if, as long as we realize that that disruption is going to create much bigger opportunities, I think we will be in a good place.
So how are you going to transform Tech Mahindra?
I personally, the way I look at Tech Mahindra of tomorrow is really not as one company. I look at it as a federation of companies. So for example, there was this payment bank licenses to be given. I mean, it's still licenses given by RBI when your favorite Alibaba, when they started Alipay, they didn't have to go to anyone to get a license. But then, I mean, different world, different regulation, it doesn't matter. Now, people ask me, why am I applying for and the only IT company, only technology company which applied for a payment bank license was Tech Mahindra. And I did try and give an answer that the economy of tomorrow is going to be click and brick. I didn't even use the word brick and click. I said, it is not a payment bank, it is a technology-led digital bank. Now, I visualize this to be Tech Mahindra to be 50 of those companies. And so at one stage, we would become an operator instead of just being a technology provider. In a second stage, what we learn in India, I think we can apply it in different parts of the world. And it doesn't matter whether it is Chile or
the USA.
Bolivia or
the US is equally ignorant, my friend. I mean, it's just amazing how out of touch American executives are with technology advances. You're seeing, you know, this in the polls right now. The fact that you have Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, these people spreading complete nonsense. This is the level of ignorance you have even in America. So you talk about industry, equal ignorance in industry. It's a big opportunity for you. It's $1 trillion opportunity for you.
Again, and we saw those examples when Professor Wadhwa talked about the Akash tablet. The reality is that there is no decent tablet which is less than $100 anywhere in the world. And the fact is that the tablet is a gateway to a lot of industry, lot of commerce, lot of education. I guess, yes, I do believe that what we do in India, we can impact the world also.
Absolutely. Let's do some Q&A now.
Okay, yes.
You want to lead it.
Thank you, Professor Wadhwa and Mr. Gurnani. I worked in a telco, and as you had mentioned, the connectivity is the key to every innovation and changes which are happening. I have two questions. One is that in India, we are missing the basic point, which is that of establishing research of high order. There is none. And we, and perhaps China and Japan, we have always been copying what is happening. We have never been able to create great technologies. So do you feel that those infrastructures like Bell Labs...
Let me respond to that. Okay, first of all, let me challenge you on that.
Yeah, let me complete.
This concept of big R&D is propaganda from America, saying you have to present X% of your GDP on R&D. False. There's no time to that. There's enough R&D done. There's been more than $1 trillion of R&D done in the United States over the last 40 years, of which hardly any has been commercialized, because that's the way the education system over there works.
No, I agree.
India can simply start taking the technologies that are there and adapting them. As far as copying goes, yes, China copied, Japan copied, yeah. America copies, Silicon Valley copies. Steve Jobs showed off about how he steals and copies. This is copy technology, okay? So the fact is, you should be proud of copying.
Copied mostly from American corporations. You know, my point is
copy
a different
from India,
one.
Copy from China.
We are not creating technology. We are not creating great
False.
science.
I gave the example of Swastika.
That is one question.
Made in New Delhi.
Sir, just let me complete the question. So I am very impressed by what you had made presentation, and I have always been talking about these things. The other question is, I think to me that there is a real ploy to scuttle that research in the name of jugaad. We keep on saying that we should do jugaad. Jugaad is not a solution. We have to have really institutionalized research, doing very deep kind of inquiry into science and technology.
India can't afford that. India doesn't need to do it.
If we don't afford...
Let the West do it. Let the West do it. India does not need to do it anymore.
If we don't
it's
afford,
all
we'll
applied
perish.
right now. Because by the time you do R&D, you're talking about 5 to 10 year time frames. That's too far. In 5 to 10 years, the world will change so dramatically. India should simply take the innovations that are happening right now. For example, AI, infinite computing. It's all available to anyone, anywhere. Sensors, the same sensors that you can buy in the USA, you can buy right now. The same knowledge that's available to scientists in Palo Alto are available to people in Jammu and Kashmir, in Shimla, in Bangalore. Everyone has access to the same knowledge right now. You don't need to worry about R&D. Focus on implementation. Focus on entrepreneurship. Focus on solving India's problems. Forget this propaganda you're getting from the West about having to spend X and Y and Z and setting up institutions like this. You don't need that. It's all practical right now. Solve India's problems right now using the solutions that are available to you right now. This can be done today. There's a question over here. Why don't you read the... I'm having a hard time reading the writing.
I think a similar question from Mr. Saxena, which is...
Okay, we got it.
That is yours, okay. So I think, again, I will just add to the point that Vivek made, Mr. Saxena. There are few aspects to it. I mean, should we be doing more research? Yes, the answer is very positive, yes. But do we take advantage of the research that is already available, right? No, but the point I'm trying to make out here is that I think India has shown the way, and particularly in telecom. The reality is that if WhatsApp has become an engine, I mean, there is a hike. There is a Reliance JioChat. I mean, they are becoming a better product as far as I'm concerned because they're more multilingual, they're using artificial intelligence, they're using more analytics. So I think there is an opportunity in both, but if we start adopting and if we start solving the problems today, the basic technology, that means a low-cost sensors, much higher availability of connectivity, and the artificial intelligence, I think we have an opportunity to leapfrog.
Exactly. A question over there?
Hi, my name is Kim. First of all, thank you very much for your inspiring words, very clear. I'm from the Netherlands, but been in India for the last 8 years, and we are corporate trainers in change management. Now, we have developed an app last year, which was launched for the first time in the Indian market for 3 reasons. 1, not to be left behind. 2, for branding. And 3, to let people start think about change, the concept of change, and how they can get inspired. But we all realize that when you would like to change, that needs to be done face-to-face, which cannot be done through technology as we talk about behavior and mindset. Now, my question to you is, what do you think should be the balance between human interactions and technology?
You have to teach the technology also. So you really need, I mean, India right now has millions of people who understand technology. This is a huge advantage it has. This is what I've challenged CP on as well, is to now turn his people into entrepreneurs, and to now start getting them out there to start educating other people, and to start now, just like we did this hackathon in Palo Alto, where we had experienced people going to, these weren't illiterate children. There was, there's nothing compared to the illiteracy in India, but technology illiterate children, and spending time with them and teaching them how to do it. This is what I'm saying, that this group over here, successful Indians need to start helping the next generation. So it is what you're talking about, hand to hand, because you've got to teach them the first time. Once you do it, they know how to fish. They'll do it on their own. That process is needed. We do need to now teach the next generation how to take these technologies and show them what's possible, where to look, and how to now start coming up with creative solutions. But it's got to be a solution-oriented mindset solving India's problems. It's got to be all about solving problems in every region, in every district, and focus the energy on that. Yes, we should be doing India should be doing R&D. I agree with you on that. It's a wonderful thing to do. But the fact is that India doesn't have time or money to do it. It won't be able to transform its higher education system fast enough. So right now, let's go to the ground level and start transforming it at the village by village using technology. CP?
Like you said, technology is becoming cheaper, and we clearly saw examples of the Apollo mission and the how do you see now, we are talking about CP saving the company and saving IT or telecom. What about saving nations? The terrorists are getting access to cameras, to sensors so cheap, and when you have such a huge freely available 3D printing stuff, who will save the nations,
CP, why don't you answer that?
I think the reality is this question has always happened. I mean, the reality is when you went to the airport, you saw these machines now checking you in, and you said, is it a death of the front office of an airline? Similarly, when you started getting into any kind of a transportation, you always said, is that going to be a debt? To me, I am only trying to remind all of us is that the opportunities for the nations is much, much bigger. And I can only say is that I don't want to be repetitive. I can only say is that ultimately everybody who's a survivor, whether it is a firm or whether it is an individual, is because he is stronger, faster, and swifter. Now the question is that are we as a collective group of people willing to accept that challenge and willing to, so there are two ways of looking at it. Yeah, I get up very scared or I get up very optimistic. You choose which part of the world you want to be.
Actually, the technology helps in catching the terrorists also.
Yeah.
The same technology that we can catch them.
I have a question from Devika Bhattacharya, who's a student over here. She's saying that super fast technology has a lot of drawbacks too, and in particular that there are many Indians who aren't literate. How do we get them to catch up? That is a really good question because we are creating right now a world of haves and have-nots. Before, it used to be about education versus not having education. Now even educated people can be technology illiterate, and if they're technology illiterate, they get left behind. This is why it's important for the country to be teaching children how to code, and how to build apps, as well as it does teaching them English and teaching them reading and writing. It's a basic skill right now. Imagine now if we had village-level classes in which you taught children how to build apps. Over the next 2 or 3 years, everyone in the village will have a smartphone. But imagine now if those children and a few other people in that could start building apps for their own communities. By the time the phones are there, they've now built a digital infrastructure for the village like nothing else. They could start exporting it to other villages, to other countries even. This is what becomes possible with technology. There is a problem here. There are a lot of downsides. There are a lot of risks with technology. The only solution is to start sharing the knowledge, to start teaching and uplifting.
Yeah, my name is Neena Chatrat, and on a lighter note, I'm going to have a very hard time swallowing a toast in the morning, right? But on a serious note, conferences and conclaves such as this are open your mind to potential and possibilities, what lie ahead. To my mind, this is hugely futuristic. It seems that you talk about 5 to 7 year time frame, and it could go on and on and on. I think the question is very basic. You know what India struggles with. We struggle with some very, very, very basic infrastructure problems. We struggle with governance mechanisms. We struggle with food. We struggle with host of issues that are very far away from futuristic thinking. And if you are there and you are thinking through, you're an Indian, you belong to this diaspora, and you are even standing there and claiming that this government doesn't know what it's doing, I fail to understand why the bridges are not being made. I completely fail that in my mind. Belonging to corporate India and having a lot of people come here and pontificating about what corporate India can do, and you saying and stealing the march ahead and saying, the entrepreneurs are going to be toast. I am completely at a loss.
I don't know what to say to you, because the fact is technology is advancing. The fact is these changes are happening. The fact is industries are going to be wiped out. The problem that Indian industry doesn't understand, Indian government doesn't understand, I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I've been really frustrated with Indian executives. I've talked to Rekha Sethi several times about my coming and doing some workshops here for Indian executives. And she introduced me to some of the execs she knows. No one even responded to the emails. On the other hand, I have the CEOs of billion-dollar companies in Malaysia, in Peru, in Mexico, in the United States asking me for help to help them transform their companies. So I don't know how to help India when it doesn't want to help itself. But the fact is that, for example, one of the folks over here has built a startup called Local Circles. Local Circles lets communities come together and share problems and hold government accountable and also tell government what it needs. You really need to start now building, Sachin Taparia's over here. He founded that company. You should get together with him and talk about now how can we start using technology in a meaningful way to start educating and raising these issues that each community has.
When you look at the budget and you see those thousand crores being, identified for agriculture, for all of those basic things, that's where the thinking mind has to come into play, right? What are those technologies that we're looking at to take our agrarian industry ahead? I think we must have a chat on this.
The trouble is that the government doesn't understand also. When I hear Modi talking about setting up nuclear reactors, by the time those nuclear reactors are done, 20, 30, $40 billion later, they're going to be irrelevant and obsolete.
So just let me stop here for a moment. So the government doesn't understand, but we also have a legacy of so many entrepreneurs over the years opportunistically making corporate India happen. You talk about the IT revolution. We talk about hundreds of revolutions. We talk about the telecom revolution. There are so many people out there willing to put their money there. Why are they not opportunistically looking at these disruptive technologies, if I can call them that?
Because they don't know. That's the problem. There's a complete lack of understanding in India of these technologies. And this is why I was keen to come and speak over here to at least educate a small percentage of the people over here about it. The knowledge I'm talking about, I didn't invent. I'm not a creator of this. I'm just sharing things I've learned. Go to my website, wadhwa.com. You can read hundreds of articles I've written about these technologies. I communicate with people. I teach at universities. And there are other people like me who understand this very well also who are teaching it. So the point I'm making is if you can learn what I'm talking about, you suddenly begin to own the future. Like Sethi Gurnani, if I had this conversation with him 3 years ago, I would have ripped into him. Now I consider him my equal. I can have very intelligent conversations with him. He gets it. I sent him an email about a potential acquisition for his company. He wrote back to me a day and a half later with a very thoughtful email about, hey, this might be a very good opportunity. Here's why A, B, C, D, E, F. He immediately was able to understand the things I was talking about. I doubt I could have done that with any of the other IT execs, including Vishal Sikka, CEO of Infosys. He's clueless about many of these things. He's going around chasing rainbows in Silicon Valley as if suddenly by investing in some stupid Silicon Valley companies, it's going to uplift Infosys. It won't. The opportunities are over here. The trillion-dollar businesses, the trillion-dollar industries can be started in India. It's all over here, not in Silicon Valley.
Myself, Dr. B.K. Pandey. Basically, I am from HR, but presently working in the power sector. And I have already worked in the Ministry of Power 3 years. Sir, I just want to point it out. India is thinking just to become a world guru. And India is very, very innovative. And so far energy is concerned, when I was working in the ministry, the 50,000 megawatt in hydropower initiative we think is a big issue, but in Arunachal Pradesh, in Arunachal Pradesh, 1/3 of hydropower in only in Arunachal Pradesh, but nothing will be happen in the Arunachal. In the UPA government, the same thing. There was a nuclear deal. Lot of debates was going on, but power has not come. And yes, you have referred about the solar energy. Now, all projects, either in the thermal, either in the wind, either in the hydro almost in the back footing. And we are hope in the solar energy. So what do you think our infrastructure, as Madam very, very well said, so far infrastructure is concerned, we are not constantly working for that. Only we are talking, and after some time, practically we are unable to do because of some political willingness. So my question to you, what are the really future in solar energy in India? Thank you.
Well, first of all, hydro I'm not optimistic about because it requires building dams, and that can be damaging to the environment and so on. Solar is what I'm most optimistic about because it can spread everywhere. It's getting fast, it's getting cheaper, smaller, more effective. With storage, you solve village-wide problems. Now, here's what the good news is, that so far we've been dependent on government to solve the problems. Even here, everyone keeps blaming the government for education and for this and for that. That was a decade ago when we were dependent on government. What's changed in the last 5 years with the technologies I'm talking about is that entrepreneurs can do what only big governments and big research labs could do before, solve global problems. So you could have a villager in India solving a problem that impacts the rest of the world now. You build an app, you build a technology, you build a product, suddenly you can share knowledge with the whole world. This is the most amazing period in human history. Literally, by the end of this decade, 5 years from now, we're going to have 3 billion people coming online. 3 billion people. Never before has humanity been connected in this way. Before, how did the tyrants rule? How did the British rule India? How did we have all of these, even now, communist governments, how do they rule their people? By keeping them ignorant. North Korea, Iran were trying to shut down the internet at times because ignorance gives them power. What's happening now? That when everyone's connected to each other, they can share ideas, they can complain, they can learn from each other, they can uplift each other. Not everyone is going to share in the prosperity. You're going to have the majority of people left out. But even if you can have a third of the population now understanding technology and building solutions, everyone will benefit. So this is the amazing period of time we're in right now when all of humanity is going to become connected and it will start uplifting itself. So this is why I'm very optimistic about the future, particularly about India. India literally over the next 5, 10, 15 years is going to lead the world because of the IT revolution that happened over here. That you have millions of people right now who are fed up working for their white masters, who don't want to be cleaning up dirty code for American companies anymore, who now see opportunities to uplift India. They're going to take their IT knowledge. So I'm sorry, CP, they're going to leave your company, and they're going to leave Infosys, they're going to leave all these big companies, and become entrepreneurs and uplift this country. This is what's going to happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And it's amazing what the country is going to achieve. We're out of time. CP, you want to say concluding words?
No, go ahead, guys. Again, thank you. Thank you, Professor Wadhwa.
I hope I wasn't too brutal.
Thank you to you both for making it a very interesting and interactive session. And with that, I take the pleasure of inviting on stage Mr. Vanderwala, President AIMA, to kindly present mementos as a token of our appreciation to Mr. Vivek Wadhwa and Mr. C.P. Gurnani. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you all enjoyed this session. Thank you, Mr. Vanderwala, for joining us on stage to present the mementos. We now take a break for tea, but please do remember that we have only a quick 15-minute break only for tea because we start our next session sharp on time.